3 libraries with a total of 4 applications are still waiting for the 2020 funding. And then we have around 75% of our C1 funding for the total libraries, totaling around $1.6 million, and that has been committed so far for 2020. From 2018 through 2020, there's been an overall increase in bandwidth of 84% for the LCT libraries, which is wonderful. For 2019, we have more than $577,000 that's been dispersed, and the disbursements we'll go into a little bit later, and that's how either you get your reimbursements by bearer or SPY. 57% of that funding, 57% of funding has been dispersed. 25 of our libraries participating have not actually received their 2019 funds, so the bear process will help you with that. And we really want to start now. The funding year ended June 30th of 2019, so we want to go ahead and get those bears submitted to USAC for reimbursements. I know that during the last meeting, y'all discussed the timeline that we have here, and right now we're currently in the invoicing portion of the timeline, which there's 2 methods to that, your bear and your SPY, which the bear is the Form 472. We're going to go over that shortly, which is how you get your reimbursements as the applicant from USAC. And the other is the Form 474, or the SPY, which is the service provider invoice. And that is where the service provider invoices USAC and you receive a discount on your bills. So what I want to go into first is the Form 498. The 498 is required for any applicants who choose the bear reimbursement payment method. Your Form 498 has to be filed in Epic. You're going to receive a 498 ID number, which will be on file with Epic once they've approved. Once you've certified and USAC has approved your 498, they'll issue this number, and that's the only way to link it to your account. So we want to make sure that we have that done. The information that's required in order to receive your 498 and have it approved, you have to have your library official, someone with authority to sign for the library. That can be a library director or an assistant library director or anyone else who has authorization to sign to complete the Form 498. You have to have your federal employer identification number or your taxpayer identification number submitted. You fill this out in Epic. You'll need to provide your DUNS number, your Data Universal Numbering System. And there's a link here that will be provided after the webinar today, so you'll have access to that if you don't know where that is. And it's the same with your FCC registration number. There's a link for that as well. So you'll need both of those numbers in order to complete your Form 498. Then you're going to need to identify your banking account. And this is how USAC will directly deposit your reimbursements from your filings. On that, so you'll fill in your bank number, your account number, and your routing number. Once you've filed and hit certified on your Form 498, you'll have to upload your banking documentation, which is a voided check. You'll upload it into their e-file system. And that way they'll be able to match up the records to make sure that it's going into the correct bank account. After filing the Form 498, they're going to verify your data, make sure the account number is correct, like I said. And then if there's any questions or issues whether the documentation didn't match, maybe there was a typo that you put in Epic, they're going to reach out to the person who certified the 498. That should happen within 2 business days. If you haven't heard back from them, you can go ahead and check the 498 status tool, there's a link, of course, provided here that you'll get as well after this call. Okay, I think we're going to have Brandy go ahead and discuss the bear pens.
Actually, I did want to say we do have a question in the chat in regard to the 498.
Okay.
So they're asking if you have to do a Form 498 every year.
No, you do not. Your Form 498 needs to be done you only have to redo it if you've changed banks. So anytime something like that happens, you want to make sure. We recommend going in every year just to verify that your banking account hasn't changed, information hasn't changed on that. But no, you don't have to file a new one every year.
Okay. Hello all, my name is Brandy Krubaugh and I work with E-Rate Central, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Bear PIN, which is something else that's required in order for you to file with the Bear process and get reimbursement from USAC. The Bear PIN is a personal identification number which is unique. It's assigned by USAC, and it enables an authorized person to certify the Form 472, which is the Bear, for all funding years. PINs are considered equivalent to a handwritten signature. They are both specific to an authorized person and to a billed entity. So any person at the library that will be or could be responsible for certifying bears will each have to have their own personal identification number. Still valid even if previously issued, as long as the authorized person is still at the same library. If a change is made, a new PIN must be requested. So some information that USAC will require in order to produce a Bear PIN is listed below, and there's also a template, and there's a link once this slideshow is shared that you can click on. It'll take you to an Excel document where all of this is populated, and you just need to fill in the information. So that would be your billed entity number, the last name of the person authorized that's requesting the PIN, the entity name, the certifier's full name, title, certified employer name, so probably the name of the library system, the date that the PIN is being requested, the street address, city, state, and zip, and that will be the information that is in Epic, and the email address of the authorized user. So to request a PIN, what you're going to do is create a customer service case in the Epic portal. So you'll log into Epic, create a customer service case, you'll upload a copy of that template that you completed, and then once you've submitted that, USAC will process it and will send the PIN to the email address that's provided on that template. You can also reach out to CSB via phone in order to have that processed. You'll want to make sure to indicate that you're requesting a PIN to certify a 472.
Okay, so I'm going to walk you folks through what you need to do to prepare for filing the Bear after you've taken the steps to file the Form 498 and the Bear PIN that have just been mentioned. First off, you're going to want to gather your invoices from that funding year. So for funding year 2019, it would be everything from all your internet bills from July of 2019 through June of 2020. And what we're going to do is reconcile those invoices against the committed amount. I'm going to show you the Bear workbook in a moment here. Let me bring that up. All right, and so currently you should see an Excel sheet that is the funding year 2019 Bear workbook. Just as a broad overview, we have all the information pertaining to your library, in addition to the 471 that was filed, and the information regarding it, in addition to the service provider. Just to have all that information in one place, it's a lot easier to manage once you go in to actually file the Bear. So the reason for gathering your internet bills throughout the year is you're going to be with this workbook or otherwise putting all those charges together for the year. So, for example, if you have a monthly internet bill of $49.95, you can just do that for each of these months, and at the end, you're going to have the total eligible charges there. Just be certain that you are removing ineligible charges. Mostly that's going to apply to voice-related charges, so phone bills, if that's tied to your internet bill. Late fees, those are ineligible. If there are any charges that you're uncertain about, please feel free to reach out to us. We can help you walk through that. In any case, this is just building up to the bear. Let me show you real quick what the bear actually looks like when you're filing it. And that is going to be over here. I have started us on the, this is a training site for the bear, so it's just an example. But to log in, you're going to use the build entity number for your library. You're going to use the PIN that you received after you applied for the bear PIN, as Brandy mentioned, to CSB. Your email address used for the bear PIN in addition to your last name. And we can just log in from there. This is going to look a little different, but not too different from what you're going to be seeing, just because this is an example site. But as soon as you sign in to the Legacy Bear site, you can just head over to New Bear Form, and it's going to bring up a number of fields to enter your information into. This is going to be a name for the form. Typically, we recommend putting in everything that identifies it for this year, which service provider, and probably putting in that it's the bear as well, just to, whatever makes it easiest for you to be able to identify going forward, because you're going to have to retain this for 10 years. The service provider identification number, the SPIN, is going to be something that you're going to have to enter here. That's unique to your service provider. Right here is the Form 498 ID, which is the reason, until you have filed that Form 498 and received an ID that corresponds to your library and has been approved, you will not have an option for this. So you will not be able to submit a bear. But once you do, you can click on this. There's a drop down, and you can select the one that automatically populates there. Your contact information should automatically populate. As far as the specific information for the funding request go, 471 funding request number, bill frequency. If you're receiving the bill every month, this will likely just be monthly. Although there are options for one time or annually, for example, if that applies. Customer bill date. For this, you will want to go with the first bill that you are trying to get a reimbursement for. So if you're trying to get a reimbursement for the entire year, typically this is going to be July 1st of 2019, for example, for the funding year 2019. Just that way you're not missing out on anything from the very first day of the funding year through current. Shipping date, typically not applicable for basic internet service, but if you have any questions about that, please let us know. The total undiscounted amount for service. This is where we're going to be taking a look back over at the Bear workbook, and that is going to be this figure right here, the total amount that you have paid and has not yet been discounted. So once we put that figure in here, it is going to automatically calculate the discounted amount over here, because the discount rate will show up here. One thing to be careful of as you're entering these numbers, just be sure to use the formatting that they indicate here for date, for example, and for the actual amount here. You will not want to use dollar signs, and you will not want to use any commas, because that will present some issues for how it reads those numbers. Down here, you'll want to read these certifications and check the boxes when you are ready. And down here, you will want to check this box to indicate your signature electronically. This is contact information. Some of this will fill automatically based on what you submitted as part of the Bear PIN. But we also have phone number, fax number, and the name of the employer that you put on the Bear PIN request. Once you are ready and everything it seems to be correct, you can click on Certify and Submit. Otherwise, if you need to come back to this later, you can press Save, and it will continue to show up on the applicant page here. Once you do certify and submit, just be sure to print out a copy to retain for your records. After that, you should expect a Bear notification letter within a month or possibly less than that to be mailed to you. So be on the lookout for that. Let's see. I believe I can stop sharing now. Can we go back to the slideshow?
Is it there?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
So these are requirements that you'll need to have done prior to filing the Form 472, the Bear. You'll need to have the Form 486 certified. Now, for the funding year 2019, this should mostly be completed already. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that completed currently, please reach out to us and we'll help you get that done for last funding year. Service provider has filed a Form 473. This is a service provider form, and it's the SPAC. You'll want to make sure to reach out to them and check to see if they've filed that. You cannot file a Bear until the service has already been provided and until you have paid for the services in full. Because it is a reimbursement, you cannot reimburse on something you have not paid for yet. But if you have any other questions about this, please feel free to reach out. The deadline is going to be 120 days after the last date to receive service, or 120 days after the date of the Form 486 notification letter. Now, for the funding year 2019 internet service that you've been receiving for, likely receiving from July of 2019 through June of 2020, it's very likely that the top one applies to you. So it will be important to file that Bear within that 120 days past June 30th. So if you do need to file one and would like help with that, please reach out and we'll help you with that there. Now I believe we're moving on to Charles, who will be discussing bandwidth options.
The Director of Technology for E-Rate Central and Central Ed. Prior to that, I spent 25 years in public education in New Mexico as the Executive Director of Technology for Farmington Municipal Schools. And it's my pleasure to work with E-Rate Central now and continue the good work that has been done leveraging E-Rate funding for public schools and for libraries. And I'm going to talk with you a little bit about understanding some of your bandwidth needs. And I think we can all kind of sympathize with the concept that we never feel like we have enough time and money. And I think in today's world, we can add bandwidth to that. So we never have enough bandwidth. And I'm going to help you kind of understand how that bandwidth gets utilized and how it gets eaten up and why you potentially will need more bandwidth going forward. Let's move on to some of our network considerations. And I want you to think about, I use analogies a lot when I talk about network design and network concepts. Think of a water pipe. And a water pipe can have different sizes along its length. And we're going to use some numbers that you don't have to worry about whether they're megabits, kilobits, and all the technical jargon. Just think of miles per hour, maybe. It's just how fast can you travel? So maybe water can travel through a pipe at 54, whatever that happens to be. And then it attaches to a larger pipe that might be 100. And maybe you've got a really big pipe and it's 1,000. But at the end, you've also got this smaller little connection of 100. Ultimately, when you're done at the very end of that pipeline on the far right, you really only have 54. That's the fastest you're going to be able to connect to the internet if this is your network, because 54 is the smallest pipe. So that's as fast as a client will be able to travel. Looking at these devices, we've got a little switch and we have a laptop, and maybe the laptop's connected to this switch at one of those numbers, some speed, and that switch is connected to the internet. And that switch, you could also call it a router if you wish, but there is a network device on your property that's connecting to the internet. And you also have wireless potential. So the wireless is also operating at these speeds, a variety of different speeds, and clients can connect to that wireless device, which again connects to your network, again at a variety of speeds. Ultimately, we're looking at a design in your network with that concept. Let's call it 100 meg. I'm going to call it 100 megabit, but 100 miles per hour to the internet. You have your access point connected with 1,000. This is not atypical. This is pretty standard, having 1,000 connection to your switch. And you introduce all your clients. You have staff clients, you have patron clients, and they're all connecting at these speeds as well. Every time you add a client, you're using up that 1,000 that is connecting the access point to your switch. Let's add another. So now we have 10. We have 10 clients all operating at 100, and they're connecting to this access point that's connecting at 1,000. And I picked these numbers because I don't want to have to do complicated math during a presentation. So this makes it really simple, and we can identify that each of these clients is able to get a 100 connection to your switch, based on that 1,000 connection that exists between the access point and the switch. However, that's not the smallest part of your pipe. The biggest part of your pipe is that 1,000, but the smallest part that you're going to be hitting going out to the internet is that 100 over on the far right. And if we go back and say, all right, we have 100 to the internet and I have 10 clients, how much are they each actually getting to the internet? They're not getting the 100 that they can communicate inside your network. They're actually getting the 10, because your internet connection is the smallest piece of that network component. So it is still the bottleneck within your environment. And you just think again about that water pipe concept. So the smallest pipe that you have on your entire connection throughout your entire network is going to be the fastest that any single client can connect. And that smallest little bottleneck, if it's shared by multiple clients or multiple devices, you have to split it up and you have to divide it. So in this case, while we have a 100 megabyte connection to the internet, each client is really only able to leverage 10 if everybody is online at the same time, based on having 10 clients. These numbers all adjust and flex, and they change based on how many clients you have active, what is your actual speed and connectivity to the internet, what are your connections inside, but the general math is still applicable. Smallest pipe divided by how many clients you have, that's your effective transport speed. Now, as we talk a little bit about E-rate, I wanted to identify some of these different category pieces, because you'll hear this communicated by your E-rate team frequently. Category 1, Category 2, and ineligible devices. So we'll start with the ineligible side first, because that's fairly simple. All of these end user devices are currently ineligible for E-rate funding. And so that is something that is up to your individual organization to be able to acquire in some manner using whatever funding sources you have available to you. Category 2 devices are anything that are on your network and provide internal connections, including some managed services. So the wireless access point, the cabling inside of your building, the switch or the router inside your building, those are all going to be Category 2 devices and services. When you are then connecting to your internet service provider is when you're leveraging Category 1. And this is where you're going to want to be communicating with your ISP to identify what is that connection speed that works best for me. How many devices do I have? What kind of performance have I been experiencing? If you've been experiencing problems, you need to find out where that bottleneck is. Is it inside of your network and the smallest pipe is somewhere inside? Or is the smallest pipe really that internet connection and it's not enough to handle all of your staff, all of your patrons, and everything that you're trying to do in order to run a library? The problem with having that poor service is you create an environment where you have sports cars on dirt roads. You may have the best end user devices out there. They're really high speed. They can travel at incredible speeds on the network, but you have a slow network, and that means that they can't drive very fast. It's a great vehicle. It's a lot of fun. It looks cool, but it's not going to perform the way it's intended because your road has potholes and gravel and dirt, and that's your internet connection that is slowing you down. So we want to try and avoid that. Experience that I have had is that you will lose that confidence of your staff and your patrons fairly quickly. If it's not working more than a few times for them, they're going to end up finding some other place, and they're going to go where they can get better connectivity. So leveraging maybe the field of dreams concept, if you build it, they will come. If you have a better network and you have a better environment and you can provide services that are competing with those that your patrons could go to, they will come to you instead. And so making sure that you have a nice big pipe and you have a nice highway for these fast cars to drive on is going to be the best way to make sure that your staff is happy, they can do their job quickly, and that you have patrons who really want to come and visit your facility because you have the best services. I welcome any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms in regard to this, and so please let them come through the chat if you like, and we'll manage that. But also feel free to reach out to your team directly, and I can become involved at any time to provide consulting, advice, information, answer questions in order to help you make the best decision for leveraging your internet connectivity and how you might be able to work with your ISP to get the speeds that you need. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, Charles. Let me. Okay.
Charles makes that sound so easy to everyone, hopefully.
Yes.
A great description. Thank you, Charles. Okay, so in terms of next steps, I'd like to reference, Ashley, if you don't mind, I'd like to reference that timeline slide again. In E-rate, you're juggling about 3 different funding years at a time, potentially. So Ashley spoke about invoicing. Ashley and Brandy and Kyle spoke about invoicing, and that's closing out funding year 2019, which just ended June 30th. The current year we're living in is funding year 2020. That started on July 1st. So that funding year, we've got all but 11 of our libraries funded, yay. But we also need to start thinking about 2021, and that's kind of where Charles started, is talking about what services are eligible. So in that orange section is kind of where we're starting over now in funding year 2020, preparing for funding year 2020, which will start July 1st next year. Okay, so thinking of that and moving forward, it's in this fall, it's time to start talking about what are our needs, what services are eligible. Charles just did a great presentation on how to determine, do you have enough bandwidth? Do you need more? You may be in a current contract and you need more bandwidth. So it's time to start thinking about those things right now. Can you go to the next slide? So, so you need to start planning, thinking about what services you want to apply for. Those services, again, they'll start July 1st of 2021. If you have a multi-year contract for your internet and it is good through June 30th of 2022, you will not have to file a new 470. I'll say that again, you will not have to file a new 470. If you are not sure if you have enough bandwidth, Charles's presentation may have got you thinking, oh my gosh, we might need more internet bandwidth. Hopefully patrons will all start flooding back into the library soon. And if you do need more bandwidth and you think you might need to go out for bid again, talk to one of us. We can help determine if you need to just do a contract upgrade or if we need to go ahead and file a new 470 for that. So for the new 470s, these next steps are for you. Okay, next. So, and I think Kyle talked about this a little bit, the 486, be sure you don't forget about that for funding year 2020. And make sure that for your 2020 services that started July 1st, if you did request your service provider to discount your bills, make sure, take a look at your first bill, take a look at the July bill, make sure your discount's on there. If it doesn't look correct, you'll want to reach out to the service provider and find out why. Maybe they didn't enable the discounts yet. And if you have switched internet services from your provider from last year and you have a new provider for 2020, you need to be sure to contact your old provider and cancel services. And so just make sure your first bill that you receive for July of 2020 with your new services is accurate. And then, of course, let us know if we can help, if something doesn't look right. Okay, coming up, we will talk, before I move on, we will talk more about what the 470 process is. If you do need to file a new 470 for 2021, we'll talk more about the eligible services in the upcoming in August, and that kind of thing. So stay tuned. But we want to get you thinking about what your needs are for the upcoming funding year as well. Something new that's coming out on July 27th, so next Monday, there is a new multi-factor authentication security login that USAC is doing. What you'll have to do is you'll have to create, they sent out some information. We sent that out as well, but we wanted to remind you here. It's going to require a second form of authentication when you log in. They're going to create what's called the One Portal. So you'll have one portal where you'll go to. There'll be a dashboard with links of where you need to go. If you need to go file a bear, there'll be a link for that. If you need to go to Epic, there'll be a link for that. In preparation, you want to go ahead and add noreply@usac.org to your safe senders list to make sure that when your verification code is sent out that you'll get that email. And some specific instructions were sent out by USAC in a recent news brief, and there's a link there. When we send this slide deck out, we'll send you these links, hyperlinks, and you can just go and make sure you're up to date on that, but that will start on Monday. Understanding eligible services. Prior to the 471 filing window, which opens typically in January, the FCC will release an eligible services list, and this is an annual eligible services list. They did just release this week, in fact, the draft eligible services list for 2021. So you can go ahead and start looking at it and identifying your needs and that kind of thing. They also have a really nice glossary, USAC does, on their website. You can look at that. That's a good resource for you as well to determine eligible services and whether or not you need to file a 470. All right, and that is our presentation today. Do we have any other questions? Okay, and here's our email, of course, lct@eratecentral.com, and our phone number. Please let us know if you think of anything when you get off the call. We really appreciate your time today. And our next call is going to be Thursday, August 27th at 2 o'clock Central Time. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.